There are stories we know because of the headlines, but behind that is a different personal story. Today's guest has played many roles: poet, journalist, politician, mother, and many more. She's also one of the most recognizable women from Tamil Nadu. This conversation is beyond politics. It's about identity, motherhood, resilience, pressure, and the quiet strength women carry through every phase of life. So let's welcome our guest, Kanimoli Karunanidhi, and let's get the show started. Everybody knows you as the politician, but who are you?
I don't know, that's the truth. Yeah, we keep discovering ourselves at every point. It is like, I can't really say who I am, but a person who likes to read, a person who likes to be with friends, likes to do my own thing. Like when I get up and look at myself in the mirror, I don't want to hate myself.
Do you feel like you got enough time with him? Because he dedicated his life to public.
I don't know how he managed, but he did spend a lot of time. I mean, people might kill me for saying this, but 13 years DMK was not in power. So I got a lot of time to spend with him, sit and talk to him. We used to play chess and fight over it like mad people, and my mother used to get mad.
Being a woman in politics, how has that been? Because it's still largely male dominated.
No, I don't think it is just politics. Politics, even more, yes. But in every field, it is not easy. It is a struggle every day. Women are not accepted when they walk down the street. Why is there eve teasing? Why is there judgment? Why is there violence against women? Why is there rape? They cannot still digest us in the public space. No spaces of power. It is very difficult for society or people to accept women there. You'll have to be treated as an equal. You'll have to be 10 times better. It's not easy. When I do something and a man does the same thing, a man is appreciated. People forget that even I did that.
Can I ask you about your time in Bihar?
Yeah, sure.
What was it like?
Being there was not a big thing for me. But of course, I was very hurt about being blamed for something which I didn't care about, and I was not interested in the television, or I didn't care whether the television was going on or it was going to be stopped the next day. It was not. I didn't have any interest in that. That hurt a lot. That experience taught me a lot about people. To what extent people can go, how cruel they can be.
Welcome to the Rayan Show. I'm your host Rayan Mithun. This season is brought to you by Satyabama University and powered by Naturals. Welcome, ma'am. Thank you so much for taking time off and being here.
Such a pleasure to be here.
I wanted to ask you before we start into the main stuff. Everybody knows you as the politician, but who are you? Who is Kanimoli?
I don't know, that's the truth. Yeah, we keep discovering ourselves at every point. It is like, I can't really say who I am, but just another normal woman, and a person who likes to read, a person who likes to be with friends, likes to do my own things, and somebody I think who would, like when I get up and look at myself in the mirror, I don't want to hate myself. Yeah, I think that's it.
But that's the most important thing, when we wake up and we have to like ourselves. I mean, a lot of people wake up and they feel unhappy or they're in war with themselves more than what is happening outside. So I think it's very important when you wake up and you feel that sense of calm and the sense of centeredness.
Yeah, but it doesn't happen always.
Yeah.
But I just hope to get there.
I mean, it's a lot of work. It's like constant reworking.
Yeah, definitely.
What kind of child were you when you were younger? Were you quiet? Were you always quiet, or did you have this naughty side?
Yeah, I was quiet, but in spite of it, I used to get into a lot of trouble with my mother. But when I got into my teens is when, I think it's a part of teens to become rebellious and things like that. Now you've forgotten what you were then, unless people who know you then remind you. But yeah, till that I was quite obedient, I think.
You come with such a strong surname. Like, the surname speaks for itself before you enter the room. But I've noticed that when you come from such a family, there's a public portrayal of your life and there is a private life, but both will be running like two different movies at the same time. When did you
I'm sure
realize?
you can relate to
Yeah,
it.
that's what I'm asking you. When did you realize as a child, like, okay, I come from a different family and things are not like maybe my friend's family? When did you realize that you were different?
No, you don't realize it overnight. It just kind of slowly, dawns on you, and that is also a process and a struggle. Like initially, you're not able to grasp the difference, and you want to be something which is not possible. Either you want to, accept this and say this is the reality, and or you're struggling to be somebody else, and you're looking for anonymity, and that doesn't happen. So there's a constant struggle, every day. But at some point, you just try to run away from it also. And like when somebody stops me and asks me, are you somebody? Yeah, there have been times when I've said no and walked away. Like I remember even later when I went for a film appreciation course in Pune. I remember when we got us, nobody knew who my father was or my anything about my family for that month. And when we finished and got the certificates, when one of the, she was from Tamil Nadu, and she said, "Are you by any chance related to the Karunanidhi?" I immediately said, "No, no, no." Then later we met, and just one girl knew in class. Other than that, nobody knew. And then later, like she never let me forget it. So, but then after that, you learn to accept who you are, and because this is also a rare thing, when you learn so much from your parents' experiences. It shows you a completely different world, which not many people get the opportunity to see. So that way you learn to appreciate it. That way you learn a lot from it.
But as a flip side, I wanted to ask you, as a child, I mean, children always want to be seen. But when you come from such a family, you feel like you're being watched constantly, more than seen as a person. I mean, there's a difference between observation and really getting to know who the person is. Did you ever feel that growing up?
Yeah, the first thing is they just walk into the room and then they judge you. Like whatever they believe about your parents is what you are.
Yeah.
I mean, after a point, then you say, I really don't care. I mean, if you can't wait to find out who I am, and if you want to judge, that's your problem, not mine. But then, yeah, it takes a lot to get there. But once you get there, then it's comfortable. I'm sure.
Yeah, as a child, I think when I was in school, the topic of divorce and single parent was not very spoken about, and it was always looked down about. And I remember in school they used to make fun of me, saying, "Oh, you don't have a parent," and all that. And at that point, it affected me. But I think when you grow older and you actually know what's happening, I mean, as a child, also parents try to like protect you. Then you understand. But I think you just with age it comes is what I believe.
Yeah, and I think you should celebrate a woman who has the guts to take a
Definitely.
decision, no? And doesn't fool herself in society.
Yeah, and it's not an easy
Yeah,
decision to take, that
definitely
too with a
not.
child. I mean, I strongly believe that. I want to talk a little bit about your dad. I mean, we all know him as the great leader, but how was he as a father?
It was great fun.
Yeah.
He had an amazing sense of humor, and very intelligent man, and he was interested in everything around him. Like you could talk to him about science, you can talk to him about latest films, you can talk to him about music, you can talk to him about literature. We used to have fights about the books we read. And what we thought about the writers, and he was an amazing intellectual companion, and of course with his experiences, and he's traveled so much, seen so many people, all that. He was an amazing company, and it used to be real fun to be with him, and traveling with him was like so many stories, so many memories, and that way. And he had a sense of humor. Not sometimes many people can't catch it that fast.
Mhm.
So even that used to be fun, when people struggle to
Like for that
even
bulb to go out.
yes. So that, and I've always loved to see the way he handled the press. I've always admired him, that the way he handled press. I've seen him do it over the years, from print to few TV cameras to now YouTubers and different channels and a huge hall full of journalists. So he was amazing when it came to that, and yeah, he was a very very curious person. So you can grow with him, and he always found pleasure in small things also, like some silly things he used to be so happy about. And nothing was too small for him. Like my son got a new fish, he used to sit and watch it with him, that kind of a person he was. And like even when he was in jail, he used to have cats with him. And he has to have some bird which used to come and visit him, and things like that. So a person who found happiness, and paid attention to everything around him, people, small things. So I mean, he was real great
Yeah.
fun to be with.
Do you feel like you got enough time with him because he dedicated his life to public? Did you think you?
Actually, it's a, I don't know how he managed, but he did spend a lot of time. And I mean, people might kill me for saying this, but 13 years DMK was not in power, and I think that was my. I was in finishing my school and halfway here and there that time. So I got a lot of time to spend with him, sit and talk to him. We used to play chess and fight over it like mad people, and my mother used to get mad. So she used to tell me that, why can't you learn something from him? Why can't? And she used to shout at him saying, "Can't you teach her at least Tamil or something like that? You want to sit and play games and fight."
He seems very childlike, no? Like
He was. Till the end, he was. That innocence in him, he never lost it.
yeah, that's amazing, no? My mom will always tell me he was so upset that she named me Rayan. He's like, why didn't you give her a Tamil name? I would have given you so many options. So he was very upset that she named me Rayan. He's like, what is his name? There's no meaning to it. So yeah, that's what memory I have of him. Whenever I saw him, whenever we went to see him, he would only talk about my name, about how he didn't like my name. I was like, well, now it's too late to change it. Because Amma used to call him Appa, and he'd be like, "Appa, மாத்த முடியாது, கொஞ்சம் late ஆயிருச்சு." So yeah.
He was very fond of her.
Yeah, he was. I mean, yeah. And she held him with such high regard as well. I wanted to ask you, there's this very famous, powerful picture of you and your dad while you're sitting with him outside the jail. Can you tell me a little bit about that photograph?
No, because we were supposed to go to we went to the judge's house, and he said first he has to go to the GH and have a health checkup. And then he was nearly in his 80s, no? And so he had to have that, and then they can make a decision. But then they didn't bother with all that. Straight he was taken to the central jail, and then we were waiting outside for such a long time, and we didn't know. I mean, they were not taking us inside, nor they were telling us anything.
Okay.
So after a point, we had a doubt, and somebody there also in the car who was with us said maybe they'll take him to Vellore. And I mean, he wouldn't been able to take that. Through the night he was, shunted from one place to another, taken from here to the other, and again from there to Vellore, or anything can happen on the way. So that decided we'll just get down and sit. So we got down and sat there, and of course party cadres were around, and of course, we were made to sit there also for quite some time, and then they finally made a decision to take him inside the central jail, and it was a very long night.
I remember seeing that picture. I think I was much younger, but I saw that picture and I always wondered, I was like, what happened? Where did that picture come from?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
just sat there waiting to find out what is going to happen to him. And when I went and asked one of the officers there, why you make him wait and what are you planning to do? He said, you're stopping me from doing my job.
Mm.
I said, no, I'm just asking you a question. That was the way they were.
So before you got into politics, you worked at the Hindu.
Yeah.
What was that experience like? I mean, that was a totally different life.
Oh, no, I've always had this thing of either wanting to become a journalist or becoming an academic as a career. And of course, I wanted to write. That is my passion. And so these are the two things which I wanted to do in life. So that's how I joined the Hindu.
What was the working experience like for you?
I did not do reporting much. I was on the desk and, of course, on the culture page. So that was really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very, very interesting to work in the Hindu. And yeah, I learned a lot.
What was your biggest takeaway from there?
Biggest takeaway was it gave me a lot of confidence that I could handle any kind of situation, any kind of different people. I mean, my greatest thing was I think people were very skeptical also when I went in because it's basically called the Mount Road Mahavishnu. And when somebody from a very, very strong Dravidian legacy goes in, they were also worried. And I also didn't know, how people would accept me. But, after some time, you realize everybody is basically under all that. They are human and everybody is open to accepting you. And you can also accept people. And there is something very pure and good in people, whatever beyond all the differences which we claim are differences.
That's true, no? I
Yeah,
think
and the seniors, how willing they were to teach, and like I was not on the news desk, but there was one of the senior editors. Like he knew I was interested in Nazi. I mean, what happened in Germany then, and history about it. So any news article he got to his desk to edit, he used to always bring the copy to me and said, "I thought you'll be interested." That kind of, it's not part of work, but still that kind of wanting to teach a person, I thought that was very beautiful.
that's nice. Like they took that extra
Yeah.
step. So then I heard then you came into politics because you didn't want to, but you had to. Circumstances made you come into politics.
My father wanted me to come into politics, and I resisted quite a bit. But then, like any good daughter, I think I gave in. I can never say no to my dad.
What was that like when you weren't really for it, but you were doing it for your dad? What was the first 6 months like when you came into politics?
See, it's not that I hated politics because I grew up with it. And I did believe in things and I've worked on issues. I've been part of groups which fought for certain things and all that I've been, but kind of an activist kind. And I've been writing political stuff also. But being part of a political party and being there, that was very different for me. And initially, yes, I was not very happy. And but then slowly, you realize whatever you fight for outside, you can actually get it done when you're inside.
Yeah.
So I think when that realization came, then it changed everything.
That's what I was going to ask you. I'm like, what was that particular incident that made you change? Because you're still in politics.
Yeah. No, that really makes you, understand the power of politics and policy. Because if you can convince people who are making the policy or who are taking those decisions, and in politics you have a closer proximity to them. You can be an agitator, you can be a person fighting for it, and I have done that from a distance. But once you're there and you can make people there understand what the issue is, the change happens so easily.
But I want to ask you, being a woman in politics, how has that been? Because it's still largely male dominated. Did you ever feel like you had to go an extra step? You had to prove yourself to show that the space that
No,
I
why
am
are you
taking.
saying it in past tense?
No. I'm not telling it past. Sorry.
No, you're saying it in past tense.
Oh, sorry. I was saying, like, how
It
is
doesn't get over.
like, I mean, when you came in, you were still one of the few women. Like, what did you learn about yourself when you fill these rooms?
No, I don't think it is just politics. Politics, even more, yes. But in every field, I mean, take films or take what you're doing, podcast,
Yeah.
when you're into business, everywhere, when a woman walks into the room, there is resentment. People look at you like, what are you doing here and why? So it is not easy. It is a struggle every day. I mean, women are not accepted when they walk down the street. I mean, why is there eve teasing? Why is there judgment? Why is there violence against women? Why is there rape? It is because they cannot still digest us in the public space. They cannot they want to wield power. It is not just something else. It is showing your power. So, in spaces of power, it is very difficult for society or people to accept women there. And when it comes to politics, it is the space where you make the decisions for a country. You make policy decisions. You make. It's a very powerful space. So the struggle is much more when it comes to women, and that's what I said. You don't talk about it in the past tense. It's a struggle every day, and just not for me. I've seen very, very senior leaders in very high positions who faced it throughout their life. You'll have to be treated as an equal. You'll have to be 10 times better, and it's not easy. You're not heard in a room when there are other men and you're a woman. I mean, people are not trained, to listen to the voice of a woman. When I say something and somebody else says the same thing, everybody hears that. They don't hear what I say or any other woman says. They cannot recognize the work of a woman. When I do something and a man does the same thing, a man is appreciated. People forget that even I did that. It's just not for me. In every level, women face that struggle.
But how do you think we can change it? Or do you see it changing slowly? Or?
It is changing, but of course not at the speed at which it should be changing. But I think more women coming into politics, more women coming into any space will change it. So I think more women coming into politics and more stronger women who are not there just because they are being proxy to somebody else and they let others take the decision, but who are decision makers, who can think, who can be assertive. When they come into politics or any space, I think everything will change.
You said more women need to come into politics. What do you think are the top qualities they need to have to come into politics?
What are the qualities a man should have to come into politics?
Same. But no, like these are the qualities like she has to have. Like, I mean, I don't mean this in a very bad way, but sometimes women are also a little sensitive while talking. Like they can't take criticism sometimes. Not all, not all. I'm not saying all, but sometimes I feel we're also a little sensitive. Do you think those qualities shouldn't be there?
See, women can't afford to be sensitive. No, not in politics.
In any field, but I'm saying.
No, even if you're at home, you can't afford to be sensitive because everybody finds fault with you for everything. You become responsible for the child, you become responsible for the
Yeah.
maid, you become responsible for your great grandmother
Yeah.
who's somewhere else, and everything is her responsibility, even if she's at home. So you can't afford to be. Everybody points fingers at you. Women are not sensitive. Men are more sensitive. I mean, you cannot see. A man might not react to criticism the same way you and I would, but they are more sensitive because they don't tolerate it. We are. We've been tuned, or we've been brainwashed to accept criticism much more easily, except for one or two things like character assassination and things like that, because that is also ingrained in our minds that it has to hurt us because it is the most important thing for a woman. Where I think women should learn to ignore it when it is not a fair criticism, or when people hurt you personally. They know that is what hurts you the most. I think we should not even care about that, because I don't think anybody has a right to talk about us.
That's true.
That you can even call it arrogance, I don't mind, but that arrogance every woman should develop. Or
So that's a quality they should have.
no, I'm saying I've seen a lot of women who break, in certain points. See, women can take criticism. Women can grow. Women can, if you tell them, this is not the way to do it. There's a better way to do it. They learn. Whereas not all men. There are a lot of men who can resist that. They don't want to take criticism. They don't want to change. But whereas many women are prepared. They want to learn because maybe they think that this is new to them and they are more open to learning. But when it comes to, when you put out a comment in social media, the first thing, people talk about is how you look, or how you're dressed, or, something very personal. That is where these women break. I've seen a lot of girls, come and cry, want to go back to where they come from. I always tell them is that, who are these people and what right do they have? And why do you care about, when you're in public space, you're answerable to them, when you go wrong in your administration or something which you owe to the people. But who you are or what choices you make is something which is very close to you. I don't think anybody has a right to.
That's true. You can't question that.
Yeah. And they don't question men about it.
Yeah.
And no man breaks for that.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it's a feather on their cap.
But if a woman wants to get into politics, like, how would you tell her to? What would be the steps to getting into politics? For a girl who's coming from a small village, what would the steps be to get into politics?
No, first, a woman or man, I think first, don't join politics or don't come in because you want something. First, be convinced about the party you choose. Why you're choosing it. Ideologically also you should feel inclined to that. I'm not saying you should have a complete understanding or anything. But when you know what you believe in, and if you are choosing a party which talks about same things which you think is important to the value system which society should have, I think that is the choice you should make when you choose your political party. I think that's the first step. You just don't go blindly and say, okay, this party is the most popular today. or my neighbor is there in that party, or my uncle is there in that party, and just go blindly. I think that's where a lot of confusion comes in the future also. When you believe in what your party stands for, I think you're also more comfortable, and you also have the strength to, continue your fight and battle, and stick on to your path.
So you have to truly believe in it.
I really think that's the first step.
I think you might be the best person to answer this question for me. It came up in the morning when I was trying to think of something. When someone comes into public life for the first time, they have these dreams of, oh, I'm going to change society, I'm going to change the state like this. But when they come into the system has a way of breaking it down. So, how does one persevere and preserve what they stand for while surviving the system?
Yeah. Very, very important question. Because yes, where mostly everybody comes in, wanting to make the change. But what you said is very true. Change doesn't happen, and system can change you more easily than you can change the system. But I think you need some patience, and you have to get to the root of the problem, where it comes from, and sometimes you have to strike the balance. Like otherwise, no work will get done. So the work also should get done, and with as much change as possible. And slowly we should we should never give up. You as much as possible, if you keep working, it might not come. At least you would have triggered the change.
Okay.
Maybe, sadly we won't see it. But at least you would have been the trigger, and maybe 5 years, 10 years down the line, the change will happen.
Yes. I told you, you will be the right person to answer the question for me. So, when we come into public life, when you enter it, you also see public failures and also public humiliation. How do you navigate it emotionally when everyone is watching?
I think I was very young, and DMK lost an election.
Okay.
And I was very embarrassed. Next day, I was telling my mother, I don't want to go to school the next day, and things like that. And Asriyer Veeramani, he came to see my father. So my father just casually mentioned, that my mother was telling him that she's feeling very bad. So he called me, and my hero is Periyar, and he called me and said, in public life, Periyar always said that amana avamanam endru onnum. Whatever comes, it's the people's decision. Learn to respect that, and you just keep going. And when you see the life of Periyar, I mean, he was not he was a social reformer, not a politician. But in spite of that, people could not accept what he said. So many incidences that he was insulted in public. People threw slippers at him, rotten eggs, and a friend of mine, and he is a writer in Karnataka. The first time they called Periyar to speak in Karnataka, and when he got on stage, I think there were some militant groups there, and they threw rotten tomatoes and eggs and all that at him. When he started speaking, he said, "This is the best welcome I've ever got."
Wow.
So I think that is public life. So you just keep going. People will come to understand.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, time will always tell.
Yeah, that minute you feel humiliated, but when you know you haven't made the mistake, I think people will come around and understand.
Can I ask you about your time in Tihar?
Yeah, sure.
What was it like?
What was it like? Actually, being there was not a big thing for me. See, I always like, I loved reading, and writer Sujata used to keep saying, "You're reading so much fiction, you must read other books." But fiction always takes you to another
The world.
world and puts you into an experience which you will never be able to live through. But this was also an experience which I wouldn't have imagined in my distant dreams that I would be going through. So I made it into an experience to experience it actually. But of course, I was very hurt about being blamed for something which I didn't care about, and I was not interested in the television, or I didn't care whether the television was going on or it was going to be stopped the next day. It was not. I didn't have any interest in that. So something like that, being blamed for that, that hurt a lot, and to be fine. But that experience taught me a lot about people. Like before I came into politics, I had this Osho's words, written and stuck on my walls, which says, you trust people. If they don't live up to your trust, it is not your problem, it is theirs. And I totally believed it. I used to blindly trust people, never ask questions. And my mother used to get very annoyed with me that, how can you trust people like that? But then that taught me a lot about people. To what extent people can go, and how cruel they can be, and who stands by you, who are your friends and who are not. It taught me a lot about life and the experience inside also. Like I saw different kinds of women, from different backgrounds, and their pains, their struggles, and that was a big eye opener about other people's lives also. Yes, and I felt very guilty for my son who had to go through this, for no fault of his. And I'm very grateful for to the people who stood by me.
My mom always says that, that when all the chips are down, it's when you see everyone's truest
Yes.
colors. How did you explain the whole thing to your son? Because he must have been very young.
I didn't have to explain anything because he was a little too sharp. And he was around 10. So he picked up a lot, whatever we wanted to keep away from him also, he picked up.
Kids are like that.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So we didn't have to explain, but I'm always grateful to him. He stood by me. He never once doubted me.
Because if he did, I think that would have broken your heart, no?
Yeah.
From that,
Actually, people who were very close to me knew me.
that's the most important.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you one question. Sorry, I missed it. When your case got over, what did you feel? Like when everything was done and you got your clean sheet?
For me, it was a big sigh of relief because, it was a very, very uncomfortable feeling, having all those tags which came with it. Like I already told you, what was outside was more difficult to face. So it was a big cleansing feeling and a sigh of relief. For a lot of people and my friends, I think that was the most happiest day of their lives. One of their most happy days of their life. For a lot of people it was, because actually the previous day I had packed up also. My husband was so angry with me, saying, "Why you tempting fate and things like that?" I said, "I don't want anybody else to pack my bag. I want all the right things there." I think nobody wanted to argue with me. Everybody was upset that I was packing my bag. So next day, I think it was a big relief for everybody. And
Yeah, it's a huge burden that's also gone off.
Yeah, definitely.
What did you do to celebrate? Did you did you unpack that bag that you had packed and said, okay?
No, my mother was there, all my friends were there, and people who cared were there.
Mhm.
So just being there itself was,
That's a
everybody was happy, and
that's
the
a
whole place
celebration.
was,
Yeah, that's a celebration by itself.
yeah, definitely.
From that shy girl to the woman you've become. There's my mom was telling me, I told you, I was asking my mother in the morning,
Okay.
and she was like, life has made her so resilient. So resilience now is thrown very like here and there. People want to romanticize hardship. Where do you think that resilience came from for you? Because you are a very resilient woman.
See, even my childhood was not very, very easy one. And of course, my parents loved me a lot. But beyond that, the way people looked at you, and people blamed you for things which you had no control over, and about your parents and things like that. So that slowly starts building a lot of it needs strength to overcome all that. And I think yeah, being this 2G case definitely made me a very, very, very strong woman who had the confidence that I think I was a strong person, because life makes you strong. Like emergency, where everybody was in jail, and every day I used to come back from school. Every second day there was a raid going on at home. Or if you're not coming back home, then drivers to take me to the income tax office, and I used to be sitting under the trees till my grandmother and mother came out till 6 or whatever.
Yeah.
All that, yes, but uh, this gave me the strength that I can face anything in life. As long as I'm alive, then life goes on.
That's true.
It's another day. So that I think this case and that experience gave me that strength.
That's amazing though. There's this theory of resilience, and it says that people who have gone through so much of public hardship, humiliation, they tend to become very empathetic because they're so used to being misread that their level of empathy really increases. What do you think about that?
Personally, yes, I think now I don't judge as much as I mean, I've never believed in judging, but somewhere within you do tend to know some. But I become much more careful. You become more prepared to listen to the other side of the story also.
Yeah.
And yeah, life teaches you that.
Yeah. How did you rebuild yourself? I mean, you said you thought of it as an experience, but you were also hurt. But at some point, did you lose a part of yourself?
Lost a lot of friends and a lot of people, used to trust, and I know they were not worth it. I don't think I lost a part of myself. I found a part of myself which said that whatever it is, you can overcome it.
You said you lost a lot of friends, but I know you have these two friends of yours who
Yeah.
are your pillars of support. I want to talk to you about female friendships because I think that's a very important topic, especially when it comes to women. I mean, a lot of women don't realize the importance of this female friendships and the amount of, I don't know how to say this, the love and the emotional support they bring is something completely different. How do you sustain friendships when you all go through such different phases of life?
I don't know. I just think, how do you sustain it? It's not a conscious effort, is it? I don't know.
I think it's become a very conscious effort. Like now, people have become very frivolous with friendships. Like they don't want to give the time, they don't want to make that effort. But every relationship needs that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it needs a lot of patience. It needs a lot of tolerance. I mean, from all sides. And it needs time and understanding. All that, yes. But I don't know, like, I haven't really thought of, how you sustained it, because it just looks like the most natural thing to me.
Yeah.
But I really can't think of life without my friends, and they're everything to me, and
Yeah.
they're my family, and their family is my family now. And I don't know if I've really put in that conscious effort or anything. Maybe after this, I'll think about it.
Now I'm giving you something to think
To
about.
think about, yes.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we confide in each other, and things which you really can't tell anybody else, and you wouldn't dare.
Yeah.
You can tell them, and actually, if somebody hurts you, they hate them more
More.
than that makes you feel so good.
Yeah.
Really, like when somebody hurts you
Yeah.
and you don't hurt. I mean, I would do the same thing to for my
They
friends
take it
also.
more personally.
Yes,
Yeah.
there are people that they're forgiven,
Uh-huh.
but I can never forgive.
Mm.
So same thing with them, and there's so much shared memories, and they're always there for you. Like when you were asking about dad being arrested, no? So we were in a different house, and my son was very young. He was a baby then, and all the house help in my mother's place was new. So when I went there, they'd already taken dad, and I didn't want to take the child and go around everywhere. So I just left my son with the people there at home who were working there, and they were not, people who he was used to for a long time. All of them were quite new, and we just drove to the commissioner office, and practically I was out the whole day. I just got a I mean, and I was just telling my husband that I hope he'll be okay. I got a text from my friend saying, "Don't worry about anything. We are at home taking care of him." Enough.
I understand that completely because I have a friend who lives with me. My best friend lives with me.
Oh.
And it's the best thing to ever happen.
Yeah, really.
So I remember when my grandmom she was going to pass away and nobody was there. My husband was not there. And she said, you know what? Leave them. They're going to be fine. Don't worry about it. I'll keep the house under control. And I just ran because Amma also wasn't in town. And she held the fort till everything finished. She held fort for me. And I didn't not even once did the thought of, oh, what's happening at home ever came to my mind because I knew she was the most trustworthy person to leave them with. So I know how important those friendships are. And also there's this study that showed that women who went to other women and talked to them about all their problems and all, no, they have low cortisol, it seems. But what do you like to do with your friends other than, I mean, we see a very formal side of you. How are you with your friends? What do you like to do?
Actually, now it's even relationship with their kids also. With the kids, it's more fun.
Yeah?
Yeah. I mean, some of them also have children now. So it's really nice to spend. We travel together, and then just go out, go for a drive, and then of course indulge in some midnight desserts and do all the mad things possible.
That's
Go
amazing.
shopping and
When I see you, I see such a formal side that I can't even imagine. I mean, you sitting with ice cream in a car and just enjoying it. I mean, I have to see it, I think, to believe it.
oh, I've got a bad sweet tooth.
Yeah, me too. My friend and I, every Sunday we order from a new
I'm so
home.
jealous of people who say they don't like sweets.
My mother does that. She'll order ice cream and she'll be like, "This is sweet." I'm like, what did you expect ice cream to be? I don't understand.
Yeah, she doesn't. Oh, lucky.
I know. I wish I was like that. I can't. I have to eat sweets. After every meal, I have to have one sweet. It's difficult. I want to talk to you a little bit about motherhood. What surprised you the most about motherhood?
How much you learn from them. They just give you a totally different perspective of your values, whatever you've been trained to believe, and how they keep challenging you always to reinvent yourself and introspect.
What I've learned with kids, is you said no, they are values. They also make you question your values.
Yeah.
Because they're like, then you're like, did I actually believe in it or was I made to believe it? They also humble you very well. They say motherhood changes a woman. How did it change you as a person? Did you become more softer? Did you become more fearful? How did you become?
Yeah, for a long time, like I, I was not very scared about getting hurt or something.
Something
No,
happened?
physically,
Yeah.
never bothered about it that much. But after my son, for a long time, I was very scared for me also. Like I had a responsibility, so I just wanted to take care of myself. I was so that I'll be around. That was a very new thing.
That's true.
That was a very very new thing to me.
But that is so true. You're like, oh my God, what if something happens to me? That's the thought
Yeah,
that runs in your head.
that's never actually crossed. I mean, it's age also, but it never crosses your. At least it's never crossed my mind till I had a child.
That's true. But as mothers, we are so programmed to feel guilty all the time. And there's this,
Yeah.
this invisible guilt that we carry, no matter how good we are, the best we're giving for our children. But why do you think we carry that?
I don't know. I think we should learn from the fathers, because they never feel guilty about anything.
That's true. I completely agree with you on that. But we carry so much of guilt.
We're made to believe that you're responsible for everything which happens in this world.
That's true, but when, like you said, we're made to believe that we have to hold all the responsibility professionally, at home, mentally, that sometimes we forget about ourselves.
Most of the women do that.
Like they go so deep in themselves that they forget there's life that has to keep living.
Yeah, they forget to live their own lives.
Yeah, that's true. I wanted to ask you, out of all the roles you've played in your life, what has been the most emotionally demanding role? Mother, daughter, politician, what has it been?
Get used to everything, no? At a point.
You're like, it's okay, every said.
I think being a mother is the most demanding.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes, like when you're a daughter, there's some point in life where you become an adult and your parents also know when to stop and you know when to stop them. Being a politician, yes, you're back home in your room. I mean, you can do what you want, and there is time which you have to yourself, or anything for that matter. But being a mother, I think once you become a mother, you never unlearn or you never can draw the lines.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is something which you can never withdraw from.
That's true. You can't.
Being a parent, I'm not saying just mother.
Parent. Yeah.
Even a father, whatever. You continue to be that. I mean, at least for me, but everybody must be having a different experience.
That's interesting though. But it is true.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you.
I mean, otherwise, I don't know, like being a parliamentarian, yes, that when you're there, it is demanding. I mean, you want to give your best, and I'm not taking away from it. Being a politician has its own demands, and sometimes the demands are quite a lot. But when it is over, there is a period where you have that space to yourself. Like we're all mad, running crazy during elections.
Yeah.
Then after elections, at least still counting, you can switch off and just wait. That doesn't happen in certain relationships. No?
Yeah. You can't switch off.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about elections in general. When I mean, it just passed over. I'm someone who's never had a voting experience because I hold an OCI card. I can't vote. It's not like that I didn't want to vote. Like when everyone's voting, I feel so much of missing that FOMO they say when you feel like you're missing out on something. That's what I have. I wanted to ask you, what was your first voting experience like?
Of course, I was very excited.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Was it when the paper you had to fold and you had to put it in?
Yes. And yeah, actually, yes. This is like too fast, it just gets over and
yeah. A lot of my friends went in to vote this time and they said they got so confused. They were like, suddenly they couldn't remember which emblem. And they were like, no, the emblem I wanted to wasn't there. So people got genuinely confused.
Yeah, and sometimes there are two boxes, no,
Mhm.
a long list of names,
Yeah.
and they have to search it. That itself becomes
I know.
a challenge.
எது press பண்ண?
And then finally you search for it and find it, and then press it, and then it's over in a second.
Yeah. And then you get that receipt. No?
I think that way, the paper was like, you feel it's a ritual.
But that also must have been stressful, no? That you have to do it correctly and put it in.
First time, yes, you don't know which side to fold, and they say, if you fold it the thing, then the ink comes onto the next symbol.
Oh.
So it should go against the name,
Okay.
so that there's no confusion.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll have to fold it right.
Oh, okay.
And like those films, you can't bring it out also.
That's also true. When you stood for election for the first time, how was it? What was the experience like? Like voting is different, standing for an election is completely different.
Yeah. First election was, of course, to Rajya Sabha. That was the party's headache. And second also Rajya Sabha. Third one, yes, it was in Thoothukudi. I like to work, and I've always been exposed to election campaigning, and somehow I didn't get very stressed.
Mm-hmm.
I was okay with whatever comes.
Really?
Yeah.
But is that just your personality or?
Maybe it's my personality, coming to think of it, like if something goes wrong, I mean, start again.
Yeah. When I see you, you live such a loud life in the sense with being in public, where the rallies, people are talking to you constantly. Like even now, people are coming and talking to you. But you seem like a person who likes silence. Do you?
Yeah, I do like silence, but I love people.
So, but you also need so it's like
yeah, I need my space. But yeah, I love people.
Yeah.
I really like being there and like talking to people and being among them. I have, it's actually, I enjoy it. It's a very fulfilling experience for me.
That's nice.
But yes, I like my silence also. And I like both. I love being with people, and when I come back and to sit with a cup of coffee and
read
my own book or watch something mindless. Yes.
What are you reading currently?
I'm reading a book called Butter.
My mom was reading this book.
I just gave it to me. I just started, and I read one or two books at the same time. Then I'm reading The World Before Us. No?
Okay. Butter, I know.
She's reading it.
She's reading it. I don't know if she's got through it, because when I was interviewing her for the previous episode, she's like, I have to finish that book. But how do you read two books at the same time? I tried it once. I got confused which what I was reading.
No, these are completely different. This is fiction and that is non-fiction. So it doesn't... I don't read two fictions at the same time.
Maybe that was the mistake I made. I got confused. I was like, in the character, it's not in this. No, I was reading. I'm reading Mr. Annamalai's book about his time as in the police.
Oh, okay.
It's quite interesting. I mean, to see his jump.
Yeah.
So after everything, my last few questions to you. After all the highs and lows, what do you admire the most about yourself?
Oh, myself.
I know you don't like to talk about yourself, but I want you to really think about it and tell me, what do you admire about yourself?
That's the most difficult question.
I thought that was the easiest question.
I think I just I enjoy life with all its ups and downs.
Yeah.
I think that's what keeps me going, and I think like you were asking me about Tehar. I made friends, and I used to go and make candles with them, and I used to really enjoy doing it.
That's very therapeutic.
Yeah, it is. And then we used to go paint diyas and those mud pot thing. So, I mean, whatever it is that I just learned to enjoy things there.
Are you someone who just takes it as it comes and says, okay, we'll deal with it, and the next day is a new day?
Yeah, I am. I mean, it's not that just because I'm dealing with this, I'm not fighting it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will fight. But I think,
I will fight, but I will keep carrying on.
Yeah. And it's not that just because I'm going through something which is a little traumatic that I will cease to live. I think that is.
I think that's something you should admire about yourself.
I hope so. I remember that there used to be one nice, very beautiful bird which used to come, brown and blue.
I like how you and your dad have had birds visiting your.
Oh yeah, actually, I didn't think of that till now. I mean, I used to really wait for it to come in the morning. Small things are there, no, to make life beautiful.
You know, I see you because you spoke about your dad and now what you're saying. I see so much of similarity between y'all. Like you'll enjoy the small things in life.
All of us do, don't we?
Not everybody. Like some people are always chasing the bigger dreams that they forget the smaller things. Especially nowadays.
Life has got so much to give, no?
And it's also very unpredictable.
That's also the beauty of it.
That's true. If you see it that way.
No, it is, because something happens and when you're over that, then there's something much better. Because your experience has taught you to face it in a better way. There's something much more beautiful on the other end of it.
That's true. Okay, my last two questions to you. What is the best advice you've ever received?
There was a teacher in my school and not even a teacher, she was a counselor. And she said, if you want to be at peace with yourself in the world doesn't change for you. You change for the world.
Wow.
And she said, this is not, she's saying, I'm not saying don't change the world. But you must understand that, everything doesn't change for you. You change. You learn to, cope with the world. I think that was very, very important.
That is true. You have to keep adapting and growing.
Yeah. I mean, you can fight against, social norms and society, and you can become the change you would want to make see the change happen. But then change also comes from within you, and you can't keep fighting with people and everything around.
My last one to you. I'm going to read it out to you. What do you wish for her? The young woman sitting somewhere today trying to decide if she is brave enough.
What do I wish? I mean, every woman is brave, every person is brave. I mean, just find it. I don't think there's anybody who doesn't. When do you become a coward? You become a coward only when you're very selfish. When you can go beyond that. I think every woman has the strength and the courage. It is just that fear that,
To take that first step?
Yes. Yeah, that just take that step. It will happen.
I agree with it. Thank you so much for taking this time out and talking to me. It really means a lot. Because I know you don't like to talk. All this.
I think I've spoken.